My name is Abdul McWhorter. I'm a senior accounting systems consultant here at NIMS and Associates. And in today's Acumatica Cloud ERP snapshot, I will cover navigating Acumatica financials and give you expert tips for a well-structured chart of accounts. And we'll go over today's agenda. So let's just take a look. In the first part of the snapshot, we'll go over the chart of accounts and the basic settings. We'll take a look at where the chart of account is housed and some of its basic settings to set up a well-configured chart of accounts. Next, we'll take a look at optional settings and cash accounts, what they are and how they affect the chart of accounts. And we'll end today's snapshot going over account grouping and take a look at the option to use a default sub account. And so before we jump in and navigate in Acumatica, just want to give you a quick preview of where the chart of account is housed. And we will, of course, go into and give you a view of how to navigate there in Acumatica. But just for a still view, a picture you can have, it is the chart of accounts is housed in the finance workspace. And of course, you see it there under profiles and chart of accounts. As we talk about where the chart of accounts is housed, we logged into our instance of Acumatica. And here we have our finance workspace. And under profiles, here we have the chart of accounts. And so as we dig into the chart of accounts, the first part we want to talk about is going to be our basic account setups. So what we consider our basic account setups is going to be the general ledger account and then account class and then the type of account. And then we have the box here to select whether to make those accounts active or inactive, the description. And then lastly, in our basic setup will be the control account module. And we'll go over each one of these headers, but just wanted to reiterate, this is the first portion of the basic setting of the chart of accounts. With that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the first part. We'll talk about the account. And Acumatica pretty much allows you the opportunity to set up general ledgers by account and basic accounting numbering system. So you have for your asset accounts, which is pretty similar in any system. They start with a 1 ending all the way up to 19,999. And then moving on to the next set of accounts here. And we're going through account identifiers. And then as you see, we go into the liability accounts. They are within the 2,000 range. And it continues on through 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. The next portion of the chart of accounts, here is the accounts class. And in Acumatica, accounts class is basically a category. In Acumatica, you can use this category to group accounts, sort, filter, later when you're going to use the information from the general ledger to financial reports. The next portion here is going to be the type. And in this case, this defines the specific general ledger account. And in Acumatica, there's only 4. And we can take a look at what those 4 are. But they are asset, liability, income, and expense. Okay, pretty basic. And the next along the top header of the chart of accounts is active. And it's pretty straightforward. This is a checkbox that allows us to use the account, make the account active so the company can post to the account. But you can deselect the checkbox and make that account inactive as opposed to needing to try and delete it. And then the description just gives you a deeper identifier of what this account is used for. Let's go down here to control accounts. And what are control accounts? A control account is in Acumatica is basically a general ledger account that aggregates the balances of the subledgers. In this case, this is designated, and you can see the designation here by AR. This is designated as an accounts receivable control account, meaning it aggregates all of the balances from all of the other accounts receivable accounts and so on and so forth. That rings true for every control account. So these are the control accounts for inventory assets and we can continue to go through. So you see the control account here set up for our accounts payables, and then fixed assets, different levels of fixed assets, taxes, and different things. And if you don't see all of these, that may be because you're not set up for fixed assets, or you're not set up for different things like inventory. So if you don't see it in your chart of accounts, don't be alarmed. It's just because I'm the administrator here, and so I have access to everything. Next, we'll talk about the Allow Manual Entry checkbox. The Allow Manual checkbox is a feature that allows you to restrict posting to general ledger accounts and vice versa. It allows you to post to control accounts if necessary. And so as we continue on in today's ERP snapshot, the next topics we'll go over are optional settings and use of cash accounts. We'll take a look at what's the use of the post option row header. We'll briefly go over how the post option feature is used, and then we'll talk about what is the use of the cash account checkbox. Before we navigate back to Acumatica and really take a deep dive into it, let's just take a look and see where it's located on the chart of accounts field. This is what we'll talk about, the post option row header, and then we'll talk about the cash account checkbox. So let's go ahead and we'll log in to Acumatica and take a look at how these two options work. The first thing we'll talk about, post option header. What is it? Well, the post option setting, this defines the level of details that you post to a specific account. By default, when you upload information or you upload your chart of accounts, by default, Acumatica will select that summary information be posted to this general ledger account. If you'd like to see detailed information, just simply click drop down, select detail, and save. Gives you the opportunity to see detailed information posted to this general ledger account. So very straightforward. The next thing is the cash account checkbox. And in Acumatica, the cash account checkbox is used to signify that this is a cash account. This is designated as a cash account, and it's used to identify accounts that are directly associated with cash transactions. So that's it in a nutshell. When you see the cash account checkbox selected, that is signifying that these accounts are used to identify accounts that use primarily cash transactions and not accrual-based transactions. So that's going to be your difference with the cash account and the cash account checkbox and what that signifies. And so we get to our third topic in today's snapshot, and we'll take a look at account grouping and the default by sub-account checkbox. We'll take a look at what is account grouping. We'll take a look at how account grouping can be useful to you. And lastly, we'll take a look at what is the default sub-account checkbox used for. We'll just take a look at where the two areas kind of talk about right now. And one, of course, is going to be the account group header row. And second, we'll talk about the use of the default sub-account checkbox and what it can be used for and why it's there. And so we've logged into our Acumatica instance, and we're back into our chart of accounts. And we're going to take a look at the account group header row and the use default sub-account checkbox. And before we jump into the drill down of the account group header row, let's talk about how Acumatica defines the account group row. It's used to categorize and organize accounts based on their common functions. So in this case, you see we have some revenue group, material group, labor group, subcontractor group. Allows this because we believe this can make your chart of accounts more manageable and meaningful when it comes to financial reporting and analysis. And some examples of that is right where we're looking at is categorization, right? So it allows us to group general ledger accounts by group. So we see here account group ID, our revenue account group, and we see the different general ledger accounts that are a part of this group. We have a group for labor, particular general ledger accounts. And the theme is pretty straightforward. This allows you to set up different groups, so makes it easier for reporting and analysis. So then we talk about default settings. So when you do create a new account, it's probably best to assign it to a specific group. Once again, the type of things that will later come on reporting and posting. Also, roll up reporting. So, this allows you to facilitate roll up reporting in financial statements. By grouping similar accounts together, you can then easily present summarized financial information, especially useful for management and stakeholders to be able to take a look at a roll up report. The consistency in reporting, and of course, we talked about the analysis and decision making. The next level, it allows you the analysis and decision making. And then we'll talk about the use of the default sub account feature. And so, what the use of a default sub account feature is in Acumatica, this feature allows you to specify a default sub account for a particular main account. And what sub accounts are in Acumatica allows you to take your reporting even more granular. You can start to see things by item or product or department. And if you do set up that particular sub account, you can select that particular sub account to then coincide with the main general ledger account by selecting the use of default sub account feature. And so in today's Acumatica ERP snapshot, we covered a couple of topics. And so let's just recap what we went over today. We took a look at the chart of accounts and the basic settings of the chart of accounts. We then went over some of the optional settings, and we went over what cash accounts are and how they're used in the chart of accounts. And then we concluded with the account grouping row header, how it was used, and we took a look at some of the account groups that were set up for different things like revenue, labor, different things like that. And then we briefly touched on what sub-accounts are and how they're used in Acumatica, but we did talk about how they can be connected to the main account by using the default sub-account checkbox on the chart of accounts feature to allow a much more granular reporting. I enjoyed your time. I thank you for spending time today, and hopefully you'll like, share, and/or subscribe